Listen up, everybody. I have bad news.
Okay.
I don't think Blizzard knows what Classic Plus is. In
Okay.
fact, I don't even think World of Warcraft players know what Classic Plus is, what it
Yeah.
could or should look like,
Okay.
whether it'll deliver leveling focused content or just be a geared treadmill for the endgame, or if any of these options are even possible. Will it just be an incremental release of new raids and dungeons until we've power crept anything and everything from 2006? Will it be zone expansions, leveling overhauls, new professions, all of the above? Or will it get inspired by old school RuneScape and integrate a more curated sandbox methodology to its design?
It's so difficult because WoW inadvertently is it's such a difficult style game from RuneScape. I think there's a lot of things to be taken from RuneScape that you can definitely like make work in WoW. Like you can WoWify it, but like, I mean, the video will probably get into it. We'll see.
But to be honest with you, I think none of these things will work.
What's up, Javier?
And here's why. Think back for a moment to a different time.
Okay.
2019, Classic WoW just released. And even then, the idea of what comes next has been a constant, a conversation in-game and not. And for the longest time, Blizzard has been about as vague about it as one would expect Blizzard to be.
I don't know. On one side, I get that because obviously they don't want to just like unveil shit like all the time. But like, it's also frustrating playing an MMO and then you don't know what's gonna happen to it, right? Like you just don't know. It feels so seasonal.
Hopefully, just like the players, they had no idea and were comfortable in allowing their subscribers to relive the nostalgia with a few minor changes, not just of classic vanilla Warcraft, but also the expansions preceding it. Now we're past the original game's player peak and are seeing an eerily similar trend get repeated once more. This isn't surprising. Blizzard has essentially opted to repeat history. No one should be scratching their heads over why the active player counts aren't booming. And now their backs are thoroughly up against a wall, facing...
This is the classic. If you aren't aware what this graph is, guys, this is the player base graph of Classic WoW up until Mr. Pandaria. So this is Vanilla WoW, TBC, Wrath, Cataclysm, and then this right here is Mr. Pandaria. So it's the curve, right? So obviously the peak was crazy in Wrath, actually. That's pretty nuts. But yeah, this has been the graph. The craziest thing, look at the fall off in Cataclysm, dude. That is insane.
Real possibility of labeling Warlords of Draenor Classic and releasing what is widely considered to be the worst expansion in the game's history. They need to think of something, anything, and fast. All of those quiet conversations from 2019 suddenly need to be acknowledged, actually acknowledged, not in a snide way like in Season of Discovery, but in a legitimate way, because most of the players left playing Classic aren't likely to transition to whatever retail WoW has become.
I really think, man, transparency, if Blizzard was able to be more transparent with what they're working on and what their plans are, I think people would fucking love that, because I think that's what's so great about Jagex is that they're so open about, hey, this is what we're working on, hey, this is what you can expect, hey, this is what's coming soon, and like, here, we're making a poll, vote for the next content, like, people kind of know what to expect, and that's great, and then people feel like they're involved. With Blizzard, it feels like, oh, guys, did you hear this about this survey that got leaked? That like it's talking about Classic Plus? Yeah, I found it somewhere on like a weird forum. Like, dude, it's so like weird, man. Yo, what's up, Pilata? Good to see you, bro. What's up, dude? Pilata, we're starting the fucking questing train again, dude. We finished the Moon's grind, and we're gonna start grinding quests. I'm so excited for it. But we're just watching a little video about some Classic Plus first.
Players and content creators alike are known to wax poetic about the future. All the unreleased content that Blizzard wanted to add in 2004 but simply didn't have the time. Yet today I have the same issues with those old conversations from 2019 as I did back then. None of them, for whatever reason, acknowledge the fact that World of Warcraft may just not fit this model, this Classic Plus concept.
I feel like they can really make it work. I don't think it'll work like it does with RuneScape. I don't know if WoW will ever be like able to become like a sandbox kind of game, because it's the base of WoW is built on that kind of different progression, which is what people are used to. So can you completely change that? No. But I think you can really expand upon the world and add a lot of the content that people wanted to see back in the day. Some of the scrapped content, some of the new some of the zones, some dungeons, Furball Grade, Uldum, stuff like that, right? If it works on private servers, Blizzard can do it too. Yeah. I also, by the way, I heard like another private server got Blizzard is aiming towards other private servers as well, guys. Following Blizzard's recent lawsuit against the Turtle WoW private server, many in the community assumed it would be the first of several private servers targeted by Blizzard. Everlook, which is a progressive vanilla private server, has also been shut down now, or is being shut down and targeted by Blizzard. So they made like a statement on their Discord where they're saying, I know it's been a while since we delivered any news, and unfortunately the news I come is not great. We've recently been contacted by Blizzard and requested to close down our servers. The claim is that we're violating their copyright by hosting the community, and we must erase all operations. Everlook has never sent to violate any copyright or benefit profit from this game community that we created over the years. It's always been our goal to deliver the original vanilla WoW experience that many servers cherish. This action by Blizzard, alongside with other recent actions they've taken, just shows that they're once again unwilling to accept that many people want to enjoy a World of Warcraft experience that they have failed to deliver. I hope that Blizzard will take this. I hope Blizzard takes this huge community, all the private server players, as an indicator, an opportunity to reach a subset of players that have lost over the last 20 years, instead of thinking it's a competition. Work with these private server creators and administrators to form a union that works for everyone, and respect the players who do not want to play on the official servers. Otherwise, Blizzard risks alienating a huge number of people, much more than any PR marketing could get back. We will be closing down Everlook servers on Monday the 22nd of September. So yeah, I mean, ultimately, like, the best, like, outcome of this, obviously, would be, like, oh, shoot, there is some official stuff that comes out. Maybe they're gonna work on, like, some Classic Plus related stuff. Maybe something like that will be delivered, right? It's quite interesting to me, though, because they're very heavily going against all the private servers now. Like, it's, like, Turtle WoW, and then now Everlook as well. I saw Turtle WoW posted about a freaking, their Unreal 5 engine. They're fucking vibing. I don't know what's happening with that. But yeah, that's how it is.
Surface implementation looks fairly simple, right? This worked, so do more.
Blizzard is protecting their IP, which they have to do. I mean, dude, it is what it is, right? I'm not gonna sit here like, oh, no, it is. That's how it is, man. It's a private server, and Blizzard they can take it down if they want to. They probably have reasons to do it, right?
More of it. But why did this work?
Yeah.
In a few of my videos, I said that Classic, the original, still holds up today because of the emergent gameplay that it birthed. From Dire Maul tributes to guild collusions and world buff orchestration, as well as the simpler things like lining up to wait for mob spawns and random pickup groups to raid and roll camp. The leveling experience is the best in any theme park MMO ever, and the interpersonal connections forged in the fires of tedious molten core runs were unlike anything in the genre, back then, and as 2019 proved, still today. But if there's anything that Blizzard has fundamentally lacked the capacity to acknowledge—
What the fuck is that? What is that weapon? Is that good?
But if there's anything that
Soul Reaper Axe.
Blizzard has fundamentally lacked the capacity to—
Dude, I love this weapon. What the fuck? That looks so cool.
Acknowledge, let alone replicate, is that Emergence. Blizzard is compulsively obsessed with balancing out every single aspect of player-driven creativity and labeling it an exploit. Dire Maul runs would not exist in any version of WoW other than Classic and maybe TBC. I don't want to make this video about all the pitfalls of time-gated slop bullshit plaguing retail WoW's otherwise exceptional gameplay, so let's instead mention the fact that Season of Discovery was closer in philosophy to retail than it was to Classic.
In many ways, yeah. There was a big meme where people were like, oh, Season of Discovery is like, it's not Classic Plus, it's retail minus, right? Because for my own personal taste, it did go too far. We've had this discussion many times before, but Phase 1 of like Season of Discovery was some of the most fun I've ever had playing an MMO. It really was. It was so good. But the power creep really set in very badly, and obviously we had incursions, but my most fun part about this whole thing was like the unique new shit that they were implementing, which I thought was really cool.
The gameplay was
Based
still
on
classic
Great,
WoW, sort of. They had some creative ideas for class design and some not so creative shoehorning of abilities from future expansions. They repurposed dungeons as raids, which was neat, and they incrementally released the game with specific level brackets in mind. On one hand, this replicated the classic beta they claim to be inspired by, but on the other, it is more closely aligned to expansion launches. The level cap increases, the amount of leveling to do is very, very minimal and quick, with tons of catch-up mechanics to make sure that you're never more than a dozen hours away from doing the single new raid available with your friends for like a few weeks before.
And every single time a new phase hits, this phase doesn't matter, now this doesn't matter, now this doesn't matter, now this doesn't matter, now this, and that's just how WoW works. That's what has made WoW successful, right? But how will they be able to, like, I don't know, it's such a difficult thing to really solve, because if you can solve that, then you got Classic Plus, right?
Or fading back into the brush like Homer Simpson, only to return back for the next expansion, or phase. While this was a fun experiment and just about as inconsequential as anything else in WoW, considering most people playing it knew their beloved characters would be prone to rotting on these servers after a year had passed. Or maybe they'd give you the honor of transferring them to whatever incarnation of Classic they deemed acceptable. But now, it's over, and Blizzard needs to, for the first time in a long time, have the difficult conversation of vision and philosophy. What is Classic Plus as a project? It can't just be another iffy year of throwing half-baked ideas patchworked together by a tiny development team and seeing what sticks, especially.
That is so well worded, by the way. Yes, because that is very much how it feels. Obviously, there has been a lot of really cool shit that they made, and a lot of the stuff is that they are passionate, but that is very true.
Especially when backed by the ever-concerning reality that all of it may be deleted and forgotten. After all, an MMORPG is a promise of persistence. It's the
Beekeeper event in RuneScape. How the fuck do you know that? Are you... I'm not even showing you my screen.
Understanding that you are expected to put in a lot of time doing something and not have that time be devalued by future updates or game closures. Now today that's not so much the case, as MMOs have become as fleeting as Diablo seasons, but I think WoW players were reminded of what an MMO actually feels like by having to exist in a version of their beloved world that wasn't perverted by some modern design sensibilities. For the first time, some players were able to experience what having player agency feels like. I think the eye-opening moment for a lot of those experiencing Classic for the first time wasn't some general realization of exploration or simple classes, but the broader understanding that at one point, Azeroth felt like an actual place, somewhere to exist in rather than log into.
People want to just lose themselves in a game, especially MMOs. It's essentially like you're living a second life. And the most shitty feeling you can have is like, oh, well, now I'm trying to live this second life, but this won't matter anymore soon, right? Because it's going to end in a few months or in a few weeks. So why would I invest my time into it when I know it's just going to be gone soon, right? That's where RuneScape has been so crazy to me, because I'm real. I can't say investing, right? But you're investing your time. And like everything I'm doing in this game, I know will last. I know it's not gonna just be gone. I know I can log off for a month, come back, and then I'll still be able to catch up where I left off, right? It's crazy. Yo, Dark Icon with a super chat says, Goose, have you seen the guy making the scale model of the also starting areas out of foam? I haven't. I'll be down to watch that at some point, Icon.
Now, I don't want to just let that semi-meaningless phrase sit there.
It is investing. Like, you're investing your time. Time is the most valuable resource we have, you know, because it's ever fleeting.
So let me elaborate as bluntly as I can. This was, in part, because it was grindier, more long-term, and demanded you spend your time playing rather than logging on Reddit and complaining about how much you need to play. Sometime in the next 20 years, there was a player and developer-driven realization that MMOs, which require a lot of time, effort, and commitment, are actually bad. Eventually, due to this, we landed where we are today with retail, and quite frankly, most of the genre, where MMOs have become jobs, not because they demand 8 hours a day, but because they meticulously curate how long you can and can't play and earn something from that play. And the few MMOs that don't feel this way, such as old school RuneScape that give their players the agency to set their own goals and spend dozens, hundreds, thousands of hours to achieve them without ever devaluing those achievements with future content, have been seeing a major resurgence.
Dude, honestly, just the fact that you can do whatever the fuck you want is so good. I never thought that, like, I don't know, like, I was so used to WoW with, like, oh, heroics are daily, raids are weekly, you know, 5-hour lockouts per hour. You could just do whatever you want. I think that is so freeing, because, like, in a game where it's essentially a second life, being kind of limited by a lot of factors kind of sucks, right?
In a funny way, Classic WoW's success kind of laid the groundwork for that, the broad realization that this genre exists as time does. It is as inextricably bonded to the concept of giving it your time as you would anything in the real world. There's a reason MMOs were synonymous with second lives, not because you could play a character, but because you genuinely needed to be that character, spend time as them. That's why it's massive, that's why it's multiplayer, and that's why it's online. That's why there are open worlds and hundreds of things to do in them, and why of all video game genres, it's the one that had the most people form faceless relationships with one another through.
That's also why the communities are so crazy in these games, because people get so invested. MMO communities are the most crazy ones, because people are so invested into their own world and, like, you know, all that stuff.
Finally, whether you have 1 or 10 hours a day to invest, you want your investment to mean something. While Classic WoW provided that initially, now we're back in that questionable limbo of where the hell are we going? A lack of reassurance is an MMO non-starter. That's why people are hesitant to jump back into a dying game, because why should you invest thousands of hours into something that is on the precipice of non-existence?
When I streamed WoW for so long, a question I would get every single day is like, Guzu, is it too late to start playing? Should I wait for the next patch? Can I start playing now, or am I gonna run, like, am I not gonna be able to catch up? Guzu, is it too late to start? Should I just wait for the next patch? I get that all the time. And it's constant FOMO. Literally constant FOMO, because whenever there's another patch, it just, like, makes the previous stuff not really matter as much, because it's so much more powerful, right?
Thankfully, we have the players to give some feedback. Unfortunately, to create a good game, you need agile, responsive, intelligent developers to take in that feedback and synthesize a correct answer. If game design was as easy as just implementing player feedback, then making games would be so unfathomably simple philosophically. But it's not. And as I said in a prior video, players—
There's some spoilers. Yeah, I mean,
are like patients at a hospital. They know when something is wrong, but they may not know how to cure it. Players know something is wrong. Very, very wrong. And now they are saying all kinds of stuff in an attempt to cure it, because as a hospital or a doctor, Blizzard has been dead silent for years. They have been leaving us on red, and we're dying over here. So while we have that one Classic Plus survey and the vague assurance that maybe it'll happen eventually, the more important question is, what will happen eventually? How?
This survey was this is what I talked about earlier with the survey. Like, I don't know, it felt like you have to hear it through the grapevine that there's some survey. It's like they don't want people, it's so strange.
How will it happen eventually? What is Classic Plus to you? The easiest and most common response is it's just more classic, more dungeons, more raids, more endgame content, maybe a few unfinished zones in the original game, and that's sort of it.
To a certain degree, yeah, that for me, that's what I would say it is, right? I don't want anything super custom. I don't want like, you know, all those things. I would just like to see those zones, man. Like open Hyjal, yeah, go to the furball, make like a furball raid, maybe make that a Shara battleground that everybody was talking about back in the day. Maybe open up like the Karasan as well, maybe go to Uldum as well. Like there's a lot of things you can do, right? But it feels like they want to like take it super extreme, and I don't think a lot of the classic players really want that. But I might also just be talking from my own perspective too, right?
This will only work in the short term. This is
Turtle WoW. I haven't played Turtle WoW. I don't know everything about Turtle WoW, but it seems to me like a lot of people that like played on Turtle WoW was like, man, this is what Classic Plus is. From what I've seen, they've done a lot of new zones, they've done a lot of new dungeons, done a new raids, and like some custom stuff as well for the classes, but I don't know to which extent. Blizzard just likes doing these subtle advertisement via surveys. They don't want to waste any money, letting media and CC spread the word to taste waters. Yeah, that's true. It is a marketing strategy for sure. Rimorix, thanks for the 2 months.
MMO, and what you're saying Blizzard should do is release the same thing over and over again. This is both something that I think will kill the game, but also something I very well see Blizzard doing, because if there's anything they are competent at, it's making instanced content.
Yeah. Blizzard is really fucking good at making dungeons and raids. They are really good at that. Open world stuff, I don't know, but yeah. Turtle WoW isn't that great. I haven't played it, so I can't really speak from my own perspective, but it seems like a lot of people like it, you know? But maybe that's because, okay, well, Turtle WoW is the only people that actually did it somewhat well, right?
Even then, what does that look like? Are we settling for expansions with extra steps, new raids that eventually power creep the old ones? Or if you aren't for power creep, what would itemization even look like half a decade later? Would there be raids with no good loot for certain classes because that well has run dry? Or are we going full send on power scale? Will we be critting for hundreds of thousands, if not millions, like in retail?
Man, like watching all these like WoW videos and talking about Classic Plus makes me realize how fucking good RuneScape and Jagex did it with OSRS. They really nailed that shit of making it feel so everlasting. They did. They nailed it so hard.
Stats can occasionally be multiplicative, especially in Classic, where secondary stats often scale additively with their percent-based implementation. I know that's a very granular example, but what does this item that gives plus 2% critical strike chance look like?
Attack speed to, not at first, and I think that's a very important thing to keep in mind as well. Itnex is not at first, and that's true. Because the old school RuneScape has been worked on for like what, like freaking a decade, 2 decades? It's been so much work that they put into it, right? And it wasn't really a big success at first, right? And WoW is just pretty much at that precipice of the beginning, where like, oh, well now they're trying to figure it out. So it's so difficult, right? Because you're comparing a game that's been out for so long to something that's being worked on for a few years now, right?
Like
if they are doing Classic Plus, we still don't know for sure.
Decade's time. Do new items give plus 20% critical strike chance, or are they still just as weak? Neither are tenable options. I don't see a reality where Blizzard is releasing copious amounts of dungeons and raids and not power creeping the game to all hell. Not because they're incompetent, but because when you have a game that's purely motivated by combat and power progression, you need to actually motivate the combat and power progression.
And that's dude, that's the whole point. Because the fucking game, the whole WoW is just built upon that, and the players are used to that. Oh, I can't wait for Blackburn Lair to come out so I can get my new gear, right? Like, that's just how it is. That's how WoW players are.
Just look at Season of Discovery, a version they pretty bluntly, if slightly sardonically, called Classic Plus More. Other players have realized that just adding expansion content minus the systems and bracketed levels doesn't really change anything other than make more boring versions of expansions. So instead they look toward the single success story in this space, old school RuneScape. I call OSRS a curated sandbox, as I don't believe it is exactly what one thinks of when they think sandbox MMO. It's not open-ended, and it's not only emergent. It's
Yeah.
curated. The developers explicitly develop content to synergize with other content.
Yep.
The skills interconnect, the bosses build on one another, and eventually the additive nature of the game creates for dozens of different paths you can choose to go on at any given moment. While a sandbox is open-ended conceptually, old-school RuneScape is more rigid in its structure, and the path
there is still rails you follow, I feel like, in RuneScape, but there's just so many of them. There's so many different rails, like different directions you can take. You don't necessarily have to. I feel like there's a general idea where everybody kind of goes, but there's so many ways of heading there.
Paths designed are done so more often than not intentionally. A curated sandbox. WoW isn't a sandbox, curated or not. It's a theme park, meaning the systems that hold it together are vertical and driven by erasure. It's inherently a more shallow and immediate game. That's phrased negatively, but there's a reason it became the most popular MMO ever. It works, and it can be incredibly fun. But these systems don't have the infrastructure needed to become additive in the same way a sandbox is. If old-school RuneScape content looks like this, a large orb of things to do, with every new update adding a new growth onto it, World of Warcraft looks like this. In Classic anyway, where the leveling is broad and driven by your choice of zones and dungeons and grinds, and then narrows down significantly once you hit max, as you are given one of essentially 3 options. Grind professions for combat and gold, do raids for combat and loot, and PvP for combat and loot.
Everything is actually it's crazy. It's so combat based in WoW,
You can do all of these things, but they aren't particularly deep or interconnected, are they? They're just kind of all roundabout means of doing the one thing that WoW has always been good at: killing shit. Even professions are all just a means to that end. The depth of content in WoW stems, as I've said, from emergent gameplay, roleplay, open world battles, guild drama,
Holy fuck, man. This was so hype, by the way. This shit was so hype.
Buff organizations, self-prescribed solo challenges for gold, and etc, etc, etc. These aren't pieces of developed content, but
guild drama? Dude, it's like the guild drama, the world, like, oh my god, that's what carried WoW so hard.
Creative approaches in engagement driven entirely by the player base and accepted by the developers. Instanced content on its own in a vacuum doesn't drive this. You can see what I mean by looking at retail or even Season of Discovery. There really aren't any good stories to tell because your only method of communication is driven by insular experiences, and any kind of strategic emergence is often undercut by the heavy hammer of Blizzard's intentional design.
I mean, retail is so different though. It's like, it's such a different style of MMO, dude, because you're just queuing up for things and you're doing a lot of content, right? It's essentially just like seasons. It's so seasonal. You go in and you queue up for all your dungeons and your mythic plus, you push your keys, you push your raids, you do some, arena, you do those things, right? And it feels like an ARPG. It does, definitely.
This is Classic's content approach, then this is retail. It's as narrow and shallow as can be.
I'm not saying, by the way, that either is better or worse, but there's just a very, very big difference between how the MMOs work, and I think that's where the problem lies for Classic WoW, because how the fuck are they gonna keep that evergreen, and how are they gonna keep people invested in Classic Plus with the progression system, that how it works, right? Because you're bound to kind of have the power creep happen.
When the depth of class design is incredible and the actual instanced content is loads more nuanced.
It's a classic Andy video. This video definitely has the perspective of, yeah, Classic WoW is the better MMO out of retail and Classic for sure, because he seems like a Classic player, and that's fine. That's why I'm making sure to say, like, dude, I'm not a big retail guy. It's not really for me, but I can see why people like it and I can see why people enjoy it. It's just a different play type of game, right?
The methods through which you're allowed to play are more limited by contrast. Hey, thank you for watching, and a special thank you to the members who support my channel. If you enjoy my content and want to become a member, you'll gain access to all kinds of perks, such as extra unscripted content, shoutouts, and more. Thank you, and back to the video.
It's not a bad thing that you don't play retail WoW 24/7, you can play other games. I mean, I see what you mean with it, but it's like then you can say like, oh well, is the good thing about the game the fact that there's not enough content for you to play a lot, so you just have to play other games. But that's fine too. I mean, having a game being seasonal in of itself is not really that bad, but it feels less of an MMO to me that way.
So, Classic Plus, it can't just be raids and dungeons, right? That won't work for longer than a couple years. Players will eventually get sick of the same cycle of content.
Yeah.
Don't believe me? Here's Season of Discovery's population chart, or the best that the players have managed to figure out.
Dude, base 1 was so fucking good. Oh my god.
Due to Blizzard's secret.
But in retrospect, it was only good because it was all new. If they released Season of Discovery again with the exact same things, I don't think it would be that interesting. Because now people have done the new classes, they've done the quest chains, they've done the runes. There's no discovery anymore, right? So it was definitely like it was super hype, but it was only hype because it was new.
Over actual player counts. It peaked immediately and then drastically dropped off, even when they added a properly new raid to the game. This is in major part due to Season of Discovery being seasonal, it's in the name, and therefore on a timer, making players less likely to invest their lives.
Essentially, guys, if you are RuneScape people, you don't know what happened here, they announced that there will be no more Season of Discovery content here, and they're just kind of like, it's just fizzling out, so people just stop playing. Because why would you invest your time in an MMO if it's just gonna have no more content?
Into it. But also because if all classic players want is a new
seasonal plus audience cannibalization by other WoW versions, yeah.
Raid, they would just play retail. Oh, but classes are too complicated. Don't worry, you can now press one button just like in Classic. Here you
It feels to me like Blizzard wants WoW players to play all the versions in different seasons, right? So new Mr. Pandaria raid comes out. Oh, everybody plays for a few weeks. It's super fun, a month or two. Okay, well now that's kind of died down. Oh, new retail patch. Everybody plays, everybody goes to retail now. We're all playing retail, right? And then that fizzles down as an, oh, well new mob stuff again. And now we all play this again, right? It seems like that's like the vibe they want it to go down.
Go. Is that it then? Is Classic Plus dead in the water? Well, there's another thing that made it to the water. Turtles.
Oh my god.
That's so stupid. I'd be remiss to not discuss the turtle of it all. If you aren't aware, it's likely the most popular WoW private server. Private servers are a funny thing for World of Warcraft because they're like harbingers of the future. They predict what's coming, whether it be Nostalrius leading directly to Classic WoW or the many Classic Plus incarnations that will lead into Classic Plus.
Dude, in a way, man, that's so fucking cool, dude. You can play a goblin and you can have that in like vanilla. Is so interesting.
Once Blizzard capitalized on releasing a classic version of WoW, private servers who did just that gave up their market to a slightly more consistent product. Everyone,
dude, like this, man, I never played Turtle WoW, but this is sick, dude. Like seeing new zones in like the classic style in that world is so fucking cool.
Anyone who wanted an old school version of WoW could go and finally play that officially. And today, everyone who wants a Classic Plus has had some options to peek behind the curtain and entertain some possibilities. Turtle WoW has been a long-running project that sought to bring the most faithful interpretation of what a Classic Plus can look like, instead of just importing retail systems like Blizzard wants to do. Housing, really? Can you?
I could see a lot of classic players liking housing, to be fair, because it was actually supposed to be out in like very early. I could see people wanting that. It's not really for me, but yeah.
Name a more fucking tone-deaf system than a.
So why not just play retail? Because it's a very different game, and a lot of people that want Classic Plus don't want to play the style of game that retail has become, I think.
Fully cosmetic instanced housing system in classic World of Warcraft. You can. It's called Transmog, and it was also on the survey. Regardless, Turtle WoW
To be fair, we had this discussion about the server before. I think at first it was like, why the hell would they put all these weird, strange things on a server for Classic Plus that makes no sense for a Classic world? But I think a survey can have a lot of different purposes, and the purpose of having a lot of these extreme options on a survey could be like, okay, well, is this like completely cooked? Like, what you dial in the direction of what people want, right? So it can make sense.
Augments the Classic experience by expanding zones, adding new ones, creating new professions, and thousands of new items, and so on. It's essentially Classic Plus in the most reasonable sense, and one that I think Blizzard could maybe pull off. Now, I know that in and of itself sounds pathetic. I think maybe the billion-dollar corporation might be able to match the quality of a few fans, but that's where we're at today. This is, again, not because Blizzard developers are incompetent. There's nothing inherently wrong with the development team, but because Blizzard as a whole has no connective understanding of what made Classic WoW good. And whatever filters down from management or their creative directors is so diluted and synthetic that it probably tastes like poison to the developers who are shackled to their desks and forced to implement another 1,700 recolors of the same mount onto the trading post.
Oh, God.
And history tends to repeat itself, with Blizzard suing the developers of Turtle WoW. This is expected. Everybody playing private servers must know, the developers included, that this is an impermanent detour.
Yeah, I mean, it'll happen. I mean, I don't know. I would like to believe that it's happening because they want to actually sort of work on it and shit like that, like try to get that going, like the nostalgia is. But it also could just be like, hey, dude, it's time to shut these fuckers down, right?
Actually, the most competent
because it's getting too popular.
At Blizzard are their lawyers, so they can utilize this to snuff out the self-perpetuated competition before launching their standardized version.
Yeah. You kill off all the competition, and then you release the only version that people can play, and then people are forced to play it, right? You know, thanks for the 4 months Prime. Oliver, thank you also for the Prime, dude. Honestly, you should hire their development team. I mean, that would be an amazing thing if they actually ended up talking to the Turtle WoW team, and they went down that route. Is that what's gonna happen? I'm not too sure, but...
Now, that's not to say Blizzard's actions are unreasonable.
Is Turtle WoW what WoW players want Classic Plus to be? Not all WoW players. I don't even know fully what Turtle WoW is, but I feel like the vision that they had has been pretty on point for what Classic Plus could be. Yeah, it's not the perfect version, but yeah. It seems to me how Turtle WoW's pay-to-win shop gets ignored because it inconveniences people's perfect vision of it. People say they want Blizzard to do what Turtle WoW does without realizing that it could lead to pay-to-win Classic Plus since players are seemingly okay with it. People like to look... between the lines when it's something that they agree with and something that they really like. So like, you know, they're like, oh, well, it's fine that they have this, right? Because they need to have the servers. But like, dude, Turtle WoW has been sponsoring streamers to play their game, to play their servers. They are making money. Dude, if you're sponsoring streamers to play, you are making money, okay? You're making good money.
Reasonable.
So it's not, you know, there's an incentive for them to do it as well.
Their IP legally, and they can very well do with it as they please. With that said, I feel as though there were ways to create a more amicable relationship with those creating a product that is at this point more conceptually and systemically interesting than anything Blizzard has made in like a decade. Remember, the people playing Turtle WoW are also going to be the ones playing your version of Classic Plus too. In my perfect world, approaching this situation as some developers have modding would lead to a better relationship with your fans, but I'm not privy to the facts of the matter, so I will leave my speculation there.
They would never open up that. Oh, fuck me, dude. They would never do that. The modding to me was what made Warcraft one of the greatest games ever.
The lawsuit is undeniably legitimate and warranted. Yep. Instead, I'm a lot more compelled to think about the reasons for all of this to come about in the first place. Private servers within the Warcraft ecosystem have always been responses to what WoW itself lacked, doing what Blizzard hadn't or couldn't. As mentioned, it started with Classic WoW and now is revolving around Classic Plus. Blizzard's inability to be even remotely agile as this lumbering, obese, megalithic corporation suspended in the air like an impotent bear in Harkonnen has put them in the undesirable position of needing to retroactively mend cuts that have already scarred over.
Yeah, I mean, it does feel like, I mean, Blizzard has become a bit of like a Corbo kind of meme, right? Where like they're so, a lot of people feel like they're so out of touch with it, right? Where am I in Ocarina of Time? I had a lot of lag yesterday when I was streaming it, sadly, but I'm trying to find, I think I'm trying to find the water temple currently.
They delivered classic WoW years
Salini, thank you for the 3 months, and Who Fed Raingar, thank you for the 2 months.
Too late, and now they are likely scrambling to come up with a cost-effective Classic Plus. But even Turtle WoW has issues, conceptually I mean. It's a very interesting peek into what Classic Plus could be, but it's also a narrow one, demographically speaking. The population that has enjoyed it is relatively small by comparison to the one that Blizzard needs to attract to sustain a full-scale development of a different version of WoW.
And Blizzard is a big Korba, dude. They're a big freaking Korba. You know, they yeah.
That's the second, slightly more sympathetic argument I can think of. Blizzard is between a rock and a hard place. If they need to create what amounts to be a sustainable amount of content for a theme park MMO like WoW, they're going to need at least 100 developers on the project.
Yeah, probably.
And suddenly, what was held together by shoestrings attached to rusty cogs, lubed up by stolen breast milk, is now a full-scale operation.
Man, I still think if they actually did freaking Classic Plus well, it could be fucking huge for Blizzard. If it's done good and if it's done well, it could be like big for them.
One that needs a substantial...
I love Twitch chat is an echo chamber for Blizzard haters. A lot of people, they're very popular to hate on Blizzard these days. I feel like it's still interesting to talk about this though, because there definitely is has been some issues with a lot of things, but I mean, I would fucking love if there was a Classic Plus though, Zebra.
Budget and return to sustain. It may not be totally reasonable for the executives to greenlight such a project.
That freaking earthquake? Man, I love the minor changes that they did though, man. That's so cool. It seems like it's in tune with what, man, that's
greenlight cool. Such a project if we want a version of Classic Plus with a proper content cadence that allows you to play for as long as you did back in 2019.
Saw it was Classic Plus? Nope. No, it was not. No, it was definitely not.
19 without immense content droughts, then are you willing to shoulder shitty monetization schemes? The answer should be no. WoW tokens, which likely would be added, whether it be immediately or after enough players have sufficiently sunk costed their way into endgame rating, may also exist beside cosmetics. There's a reason why Blizzard is considering transmog, cosmetic overrides, as a system to include. We also have seen them cross-port models between versions, which allows them to do the same with the deluge of cosmetic glut.
This is what I mean though, they want people to play all the versions. Oh, guys, right now, Mr. Pandaria is coming out. If you, they had a promotion where if you kill the first boss in the Scarlet Enclave raid in Season of Discovery, you would get a free boost for Mr. Pandaria. So they're just trying to get people to play everything, really.
Populating retail WoW. Sure, this allows for some level of horizontal repurposing of outmoded content through cosmetic collection, but it also allows them to monetize it to all hell. This is not a novel realization. They added a fucking WoW token to Wrath of the Lich King Classic, which was literally just a re-release of an expansion. It was like 4 developers locked in a cage getting fed hamster food and working on a single Macintosh from 2007. That's hyperbole, but obviously the scale of these projects would be different by comparison. Blizzard needs that wide demographic to even consider a standard monetization model. Let's defer back to the initial topic. What is Classic Plus? Sadly, I don't have an answer. I've heard options and all of them sound holistically unconvincing. Adding some new zones and raids wouldn't be sustainable. It completely misses the point, the appeal of WoW. I think adding new leveling content would be very cool thematically, but a huge time investment for little return. I'd love to see new leveling zones and expansions on old ones, but that can't be the selling point of the game because for most players, it's a one-time experience. And ultimately,
I feel like if they want to do it well, they have to do all those things, man. Like, if you want to actually do it well, you gotta do all those things. New zones, new quest hubs, new dungeons while you're leveling, some new endgame content, new PvP, like arena, new PvP battlegrounds. But that's a big undertaking. That's a lot. Small changes to some of the classes too, yeah.
Ultimately, the third option would be to make WoW a sandbox, or as close to one as possible. Turtle WoW has already been leaning heavier into this, an effort to sustain pre-existing content while employing the additive formula of old-school RuneScape. It may be the only option that sees the game survive for longer than a year or two. But by doing so, would it even be WoW anymore? If we uproot the subgenre that it in many ways perfected and transition it into another one, how much of that DNA will still be there?
That's the problem. I don't know if people would like a sandbox style WoW, because it's so against what WoW is for the main thing. Why do that for the classic community instead of the larger retail community? Quality aside, don't see a reason for them to do Classic Plus. Well, because Classic WoW was a huge, massive success, and a lot of people probably would want to play that. That's probably why, yeah.
In some ways, it's...
But you might be right. Maybe they don't see it as being worthwhile enough effort to really put in a lot of work that it would need, right?
Like the ship of Theseus. In an attempt to replicate success, we begin to slowly rip apart the core of the game, reshape it into the version that we always wanted it to be. But in the process, is it the original anymore? How can it be Classic Plus when the plus is subsuming the classic? I would still prefer this though. I would rather see Blizzard swing for the fences and attempt to synthesize the gameplay and design people love into a more sustainable package for the future.
It does definitely feel like to me that they would probably, Blizzard seems to rather would want to focus on retail WoW and then kind of let Classic maybe be like a seasonal, I don't know, that's the vibe I'm getting, but yeah.
If you agree, let's think of what that could look like in a general sense. For one, the entire itemization process would need to completely change. There would need to be entirely new systems added to the game, more interconnected elements in its professions, perhaps even allowing everyone to be every profession and exponentially increasing the amount of time needed to level them up, kind of creating a RuneScape-esque progression. Adding dozens, if not hundreds, of new profession-specific items that enhance your gameplay, building up a world where you're just as likely to go to Stone Talon Mountains as you are Blackrock Mountain.
This would be... this is like a pipe dream. Like, there's no... I don't know if they're gonna ever allocate that many resources to do this stuff, man, because it's such a risk, right? Whereas Classic WoW in 2019 was very just like, okay... You know, try to send the game as it was, minimal changes. It's not a lot of work. We needed a very few people for it, and you just send it out, right?
Adding horizontal systems that aren't just facilitating combat, but rather act as entirely new avenues of gameplay with enough depth to mimic that of combat. Things that you're excited to log into and do.
The most realistic thing I can see happening for Classic WoW is them probably just doing, hey, Classic WoW, then TPC, then Wrath, and then we do it again, and then we just re-release them like that, right? Rather than them doing such things. And then maybe from time to time doing a seasonal thing, right? Because it feels to me like that's the route it might go down, but I would fucking love to see something like this, though. I would love to see it. I think that could be so crazy. If they actually did, like, went down this route of doing... I don't know, the zones, professions, like all that stuff would be so cool.
And spend weeks grinding without ever needing to touch any of the traditionally Warcraft endgame. And finally, having the foresight and confidence needed to exist alongside player-driven emergence. It requires such a deft hand, such a nuanced and impressive understanding of World of Warcraft that I'm not sure anyone can pull it off. Because that's what RuneScape is. The benefit of old school RuneScape is that it has always been that, but the understanding of how to harness this has only improved in time. Today, our developers are very in tune with the systems of the sandbox, but only after years of trials and failures. It took the game dying, arguably twice, and being born again to iron out a long-term vision.
I've heard about that shit, dude. RuneScape was pretty bad in the beginning, from what I understand.
Blizzard has not communicated anything to anyone.
OSRS,
I'd be surprised if even the developers know what the future holds for this yet unannounced but kind of announced project. How is anyone to feel confident that they're in good hands when they can't even see the hands holding them? It's a maddening process. If there's anything I will advocate for, it's to be honest with your interests and forceful with your intentions. We're not talking old school RuneScape here. Jagex has had well over a decade to become agile and responsive to their community, and has integrated a controversial but exceptional polling system that gives a
I mean, they've just done it well, man. Years and years of listening to the community and figuring out what people want and dialing it in has really made them very successful at it.
Voice to players that all generally agree on what old school RuneScape is, what its future looks like.
Bro,
that's not without plenty of drama, but a skiller, a top-end PVMer, and a new player can all identify the overarching identity of old school RuneScape. The same cannot be said about Classic Plus. The community behind this concept needs time to evolve with it, but time itself is of the essence. There won't be a decade of mistakes because Blizzard's investment needs to be a lot more expensive to create a sustainable product. A sandbox, curated or not, is great at repurposing content and creating huge releases out of a comparably small amount of development time. Because old school RuneScape is long-form, incremental, and ever-growing, the developers can release a piece of content that will take months to complete without people batting an eye because they know that it will always be there. It won't
there's no FOMO.
Be deleted with a seasonal update or an expansion. That is the subgenre
That's the greatest thing.
Even vanilla WoW all the way back in 2004 never had this luxury. Things were certainly more relevant for a longer period of time, but at this point, that strikes me more as a happy accident than an intended piece of design.
Balstrom says, no offense, but the video presents as a discussion, but so far I've only heard why WoW is bad, OS is good, milking the MMO war trend. It's definitely trending towards a bit like... Theory, he is very much like a RuneScape player, and I think he really likes the classic versions of MMOs. Obviously, you can definitely tell he does not like retail WoW. I don't really hate retail WoW. I think the game is seasonal, and that's just how it is, right? It is what it is. But yeah, he's an ex-WoW player. I think he used to raid in retail as well. But I don't know. I think from the classic perspective, I think it's interesting talking about. I just don't know, man. I still think an actual Classic Plus is going to be pretty much impossible for Blizzard to do because the amount of resources they need to allocate for it and then the potential benefit would be so... I don't know if it's worth for them to do it, but I would love to see it.
The fact that Molten Core gear remained somewhat relevant in Naxxramas could have very well been because Blizzard's developers had yet to fully grasp the intricacies of their own itemization. And we've seen as much in Season of Discovery, sanding down the rough edges of item design to facilitate a more linear progression. Now, I want to ask you if just a half-year cycle of patches adding a new raid, maybe a new dungeon, and perhaps even some overworld stuff to do, whether that be a zone expansion or new leveling content, would be enough to retain your excitement about the game.
I really think it can work. I don't think WoW can work in a sandbox way because that's just the base of what WoW is, right? Like you need like some seasonal content in WoW. I feel like for people to want to play it because that's what the WoW players are used to. If you change the core fundamental of how the game functions, then people probably won't enjoy it as much. But I still think it's possible to do it in a WoW way.
Now, but years later. The benefit of a classic WoW release is that there are two enormous continents to journey through in your task to get max level. A single new zone or minor expansion doesn't add that agency. Hell, even a fully new continent doesn't add that, as we've seen with the expansions that followed. So when I say be forceful with intent, I mean that you should, as a huge WoW fan, consider what it means to be playing a Classic Plus. Not now or in a year, but maybe in 5 years, 10. What does the game look like?
The longevity. Gregor says, just go with a sought direction and refine it with more variety. That's what Blizzard can actually pull off. I agree. Like, if you want a realistic thing that Blizzard could do, it's probably like a sort direction. For my own taste, I would not want it to be as extreme with all the custom classes and shit, man. But like, dude, they can do zones pretty well. They can do dungeons and raid content pretty freaking good. Like, Karazhan was amazing. Demonfall Canyon was alright. Like, the different raids that they did, the dungeons they turned into raids were pretty good.
What does your gameplay look like? Whatever the answer to that is, I hope it's not yet another path to where we currently are today.
That I do agree, and that is weird to see where Blizzard is going. I wish I could go a year in the future and look at BlizzCon and then see what the heck's gonna happen with Classic WoW, because we are at the precipice of like Waters of Draenor, very controversial expansion classic-wise, right? And we don't know what's happening with Sod. I want to know, man. I want to know so bad, but I guess we'll see. But I do think that the most realistic thing is probably some sort of more refined version of Sod. Yeah, I do agree with that. Would I like to see a lot more than that? Definitely. But I think it's an interesting conversation, guys. I know this was a long video, but I quite liked talking about this because, as you guys may know, I'm a big classic guy, right? So yeah, I would love to see it. I just don't know if Blizzard will be able to deliver the perfect version of what Classic Plus is, because the perfect version is different from person to person, right? And that's how it is. But I am still gonna keep my eyes out on all the stuff that's happening with Classic and a potential Classic Plus, because I fucking love this game, man. I really do. And I would definitely like to see where it leads, because for me, Mr. Pandaria is yeah, I don't think it's it, but that's how it goes. You know, it is what it is, chat. I'll link the video here. Check out Theory-Wise. Interesting video, interesting topic as well, guys. I definitely am intrigued to see where this whole thing is gonna go with the lawsuit and the future of just Classic WoW.